Welcome in, Sweaty Fantasy Football Podcast, episode number 11. I'm Justin. Zach is with me today. It's a great time to be a football fan. We have about a month until real football. We got training camp, we got injuries, some contracts, we got videos of players on the field. It's a great time to overreact. What do you say, Zach?
Ah, man, this part of the year is so fun. Every single time someone on my team does something good, I will be sending it in the chat and telling you why he is just going to the moon this year. But when your player does it, it's training camp. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I just love the slow-mos, the cuts in basketball shorts, like an out route where the ball is just a perfect spiral. And I'm thinking of the Harold Fannin one. We talked about the Xavier Worthy deep bomb, just a slow-mo where the ball's in the air forever. Anyways, it's a great time. There's lots of puff pieces out there. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna break down what you should and should not care about in training camp and even on into the preseason. So it's going to be a good time. There's a lot to sift through because everybody's itching for football. Like all the people that are locked into football and fantasy football. It's been, let's see, Super Bowl's in February, so it's been February, March, April, May, June, July, almost half a year without football. So like you just want stuff to happen. So like Zach said, when things that are going the way you want them to go, you send it right to your group chats. Whatever group chats you're in, you send it there. When things don't go your way, you say, it's just a puff piece and you move on. So I guess we'll just get right into it. So this week in our league, we had a trade that went down. I got Jaden Reed and 10 fab, which is 10% of our yearly budget for Zay Flowers and a 2028 third.
I uh I see you are already trying to make this look a little better for you because this was in fact five fob.
Oh no.
Maybe five more fob would have saved you from the grade that I have ready for you. But
I bet it's bad.
I didn't write I didn't write a paragraph this time because I feel like bullet points reads a little better than reading off a screen while we're live on air. So the main things that I said here, I did start with you. I said that I love Jaden Reed at cost. I definitely see a world where he is still the number one in Green Bay. In a different league that we're in, I just recently made a trade for Jaden Reed. I really like him. I think that he's very talented. Has had a couple of unlucky runouts, and I think that there's definitely a world where he's still the most talented wide receiver in Green Bay. The problem is I don't think you paid cost. I think that paying Zay Flowers and a third is a little bit rich. But something we were talking about before we came on was, at this time of the offseason when player values are so stagnant, we have no new information to really draw conclusions based upon. You know what I mean? Everybody on every roster is there for a reason. So if you want to remove a player from someone's roster, you're probably not going to be in. It's probably not going to be a fair trade on keep trade cut to get that to go. So with that in mind, I went ahead and I gave it a C minus because I like the player you're going for, and I think that you got a deal done, and that's worth mentioning. But there's just an obvious value discrepancy. Getting into that value discrepancy on Micah's side, picking up Zay Flowers in the third, I think 1-to-1. I would rather have Zay Flowers, but his move, it's still lateral within a tier. You know what I mean? Like he's moving within a tier, so I don't want to get too aggressive on the player for player part of the deal. But also the fact that he picked up the third that moved is the most valuable third in our league. It projects to be, if not the 301, it has probably the best chance to be a top three third of all of them in the league. So it's a 10-man league. That's probably picked 21 to 23 in the draft. And that on top of a lateral move where I think I'd rather have the kind of I think that I can give him a really solid B for that trade. Very clear win for me, and some good value on top.
To me, I looked at my team and I have a bunch of wide receiver twos. Like I have my guys, I have Puka and Marv, and then I kind of have some guys that are going to be middling wide receiver twos, and I wanted to flip the wide receiver 20-ish, 20, 25 and Zay Flowers to get a potential. I think if everything broke right, I'm pretty high on the Packers this year. I've been kind of digging into them. I think we might do a hot take show later in the offseason. I think if everything broke right and he caught a bunch of touchdowns, I think he could finish top five at the wide receiver position, and that's an upside that, while it's a 0.1% chance, I don't think Zay has that. Like in a season where Lamar threw 41 touchdowns, he caught four. And so to me, it's kind of just like trading a middling, not a whole ton of upside. I think we might have seen the best of Zay Flowers that we've seen. It's debatable. I was swinging for the fences here. The fab keeps me ahead of Trevor. I'm trying to be the highest fab, so if somebody breaks out week one, I can get him. But to me, it was just an upside. Try to stay out of the middling wide receiver two. And Jaden Reed might flame out. He might not ever realize his potential. And I actually have the wide receiver 50, but I'm just trying to take a swing at getting the wide receiver 10 at the end of the year.
Hey, I respect it. I understand what you're doing. I like that process of, if he's your wide receiver five and you don't see him being a difference maker on a championship team,
Hmm.
then what is a loss if you do truly take a loss? You know what I mean? I don't think Jaden Reed has top five upside. Your sentence will be the one that gets clipped, and the reason no, I'm just kidding. But I think I think top 15 is absolutely in the range of outcomes. I think it's probably maybe the top 20th percentile of the range of outcomes. But I think top five is very aggressive.
Well, it's definitely very aggressive, but that's how I like to play the game.
Amen.
All right. Like we mentioned earlier, we're going to get into training camp, what to watch throughout the remainder of the offseason when there's actually news coming in. Everybody's team is projected to win the division right now. Everybody has a good shot at winning the Super Bowl outside of the Browns. It's a tough time of year. So we'll kind of go through in or I guess we'll go through injuries. That's our first section of news. We have so much news that's kind of chunked into different sections. So the first one is the injuries, and this is one of the parts of fantasy football that kind of stinks. You can have a great process and you kind of just get bad luck and somebody gets hurt. So the first piece of news, Tristan Wirfs, he got hurt. Um, the news on him is he's supposed to be back sooner rather than later. I don't know an exact timeline for him, but he's going to be out for a little bit, at least to start the season, and that hurts the whole Bucks offense. It's not good. In my opinion, it downgrades everybody. It downgrades the running game. Baker's gonna have less time to throw. I don't. It's just bad overall for the Bucks.
Yeah, this is really discouraging, especially we've already said we're a little bit lower on Bucky Irving than consensus. Bucky Irving is someone that I am actively moving down my board, not dramatically. This is not he's undraftable. There are going to be drafts where he falls, and I still draft him this year. But he is the best player on that offense. He's one of the few offensive linemen in the league that are truly a weapon, truly can sit at a table with guys like Penei Sewell and Trent Williams, at least in my own opinion. And I just think that going from such a strength to presumably a weakness for we are expecting him to hit the putt. So we're thinking at a bare minimum of 4 games missed. That's a quarter of the season. I think that hurts the outlook of some of these guys. So yeah, always sad. Hate to see it. But yeah, I will think of that every time I have a ranking decision to make for Baker. Every time I have a ranking decision to make for Rashad White or Bucky Irving or even Sean Tucker, who's a guy I'm a little higher on than consensus. It sucks.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. Next piece of news: Najee Harris. He had a firework accident on the 4th of July. Had some injury. Had an injury to his eye. Uh, you probably remember a couple years ago, Jason Pierre-Paul got hurt on the 4th of July with fireworks. It's something that happens every couple years. Um, you don't like to see it. It's been labeled as a superficial injury, so it's not he didn't like lose his eye or anything. But I'm trying to look. I can't remember. I thought I heard that he's starting on the NFI list. He's starting training camp on the non-football
That's
injury
correct.
list.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
correct.
the stories right now, they don't know how long he's going to be out. His quote is that he's praying for healing. So like it's not like he tweaked his hamstring and we're like, well, he's going to be out for 2 weeks. He hurt his eye. We don't know how long that's going to be. That just means Amarian Hampton's going to get a lot of reps to start off training camp, which is, I mean, the Chargers started a week early because they're in the Hall of Fame game. So I think this moves Amarian Hampton up a little bit. I don't think there's too much actionable. I mean, maybe Amarian goes up a spot or two and Najee goes down a spot or two until we know. Like if it comes out that Najee's going to go on the regular season pup, which that's an important distinction to make. So the pup right now, if you go on the pup, the physically unable to perform, you can get pulled off anytime. Once training camp is over, if you go on the regular season pup, you miss a minimum of 4 games. So when players go on the pup right now, it's not as big of a deal. But if if it comes out that Najee doesn't progress very well and he's out for the first few weeks of the season, then it's wheels up for Amarian. So it's kind of just something to monitor for the rest of the offseason.
That's been the main knock for a while is that maybe you're not drafting Amarian super high in redraft because of the fact that we have kind of expected him to split carries to some degree with
Hmm.
Najee Harris. Obviously we don't know a lot about what this eye injury looks like. Like I haven't even seen a picture of anything
Hmm.
that happened. We don't really have a lot of information. So I don't want to be making decisions on a situation where I don't have a lot of
Hmm.
information. But if you feel convinced one way or the other that this is either not a big deal or if you think it is a big deal, Amarian getting these early first team reps is a big deal. It is going to be hard to keep him off the field. And if we're seeing a world where we think that he can run away with that job before the season starts, which I think we all expect him to be hard to keep off the field, then that could really push him up board. So if you feel convicted, if you know something I don't about the way that an eye injury from a firework can affect the timetable to return to full contact practice. It could be very meaningful. I would monitor it for now. Pay attention to what's happening with Najee Harris for now.
If we have any eye doctors watching, feel free to educate us in the comments. Um, to me, it's one of those things where you can't put a genie back in a bottle. Like if if Najee's out week 1 and Amarian goes like 20 for 170 and 2 against the Chiefs on Friday night in a standalone primetime game, you can't come out the next week and say we're going to make it a 50-50 timeshare between Amari and Hampton and Najee Harris. Like the world is going to explode if that happens. So like the more reps you get, the more you're going to be like, "Huh, we took this guy at 21 over, I think it was 21 overall. He's pretty good. I think we're going to stick with him." Anyway, so we'll monitor that and keep you guys updated as we hear more. Next piece of news, Will Levis. Will Levis is getting shoulder surgery. He's going to be out for the year. So Cam Ward has already been named the starter for week 1. This doesn't change anything. We all thought Cam Ward was going to be the starter for week 1. Will Levis. I mean, now at this point, they just have to look for a secondary backup. Does this change anything to you?
No, I'm sad for Will Levis, man. I do kind of like Will Levis. Maybe I'm just a Titans fan. Maybe I was just rooting for him, but sad for the Mayo man.
I was going to look it up. Do you know who their backup is off the top of your head?
No, no, I do
Yeah,
not.
Brandon
Not behind
Allen and
Will.
Tim Boyle. So, yeah,
Tim Boyle
you're.
makes me angry. Tim
Oh
Boyle
man,
made my blood pressure rise when you said his name. I inherited a dynasty orphan where Tim
that's
Boyle was
true.
the QB3 or QB4, depending on how you rate retired ass Ryan Tannehill. So, yeah, Tim Boyle. Yeah, we got beef.
Anyway, so I mean, this is very much there's nobody looking over Cam Ward's shoulder. He has full reign. He'll probably get 2 to 3 years, even if he sucks. If he just comes out and falls flat on his face, he'll probably still get 2 years. Not and Will Levis hasn't changed that since he's going to be out. Matt Stafford, this one does cause a little bit of alarm to me. He comes into camp with back soreness and he's not practicing with the full team. This one is tough because he's an older player, and everybody's kind of speculated about whether or not he's going to retire for the past one, maybe two off seasons, where it's kind of like these older guys that come in with injuries. He's not 20-year-old Matt Stafford, and it seems like his days of playing. I mean, I don't know if you remember, he got absolutely torn apart on the Lions. I mean, there's clips going around of him. He basically can't lift his left arm, and he leads a drive down the field on the Lions, and then as soon as he throws it into the touchdown, he just like fall or into the end zone, he falls down. He's like holding his arm. He can't move anything. Seems like that might be catching up with him. Like I said, an older player to come into camp with an injury, it's not what you love to hear, especially not for Puka. You're relying on the Rams offense being good for Kyron to get touchdown opportunities. You're already splitting targets between Devontae and Puka. Obviously, we think Puka's an elite talent. Like he's going to be a top dynasty wide receiver or a top redraft wide receiver this year. But what is Stafford being out? I mean, obviously we're a ways away from the season actually starting, but what would Stafford being out mean for Puka?
It's it's really easy to see a world where Matthew Stafford, 37-year-old Matthew Stafford, is not even what he was down the stretch last year. And even at the beginning of last year, that offense struggled a significant amount early in the year. It's scary. You don't draft and redraft for the median range of outcomes. You don't draft for the worlds where you get, oh, we're going to get 12 games of Matthew Stafford and then Jimmy Garoppolo will be serviceable. Like you're drafting if you're drafting these guys, you're expecting to get a full season of Matthew Stafford, and so I don't think that's really moving my needle all that much. But man, talk about something that could derail a team season. A team with like very realistic. I believe that in that locker room, they're speaking of themselves as contenders right now. We've touched briefly in the
Easily.
past on what that Eagles game looked like. Oh, maybe if it's not snowing, they're playing in a Super Bowl this year. Stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so I think we all have some very high expectations on a team that was good, seemingly got better. Uh, but there is a scary floor that exists for the Rams that does not exist for some of the other top contenders in the league, like the Ravens or the Bills, the Chiefs. Obviously, any quarterback could get hurt, but I would say the odds of Stafford getting hurt are significantly higher than the odds of one of those guys getting hurt.
Yeah, McVay said it's not a concern right now. He expects him to be back soon. Again, it's we're not projecting that he's gonna miss time because of this. It's just not what you want to see coming into training camp. Last piece of news, Stephon Diggs is not on the pup. I mean, that's crazy. There was people that were like, he's gonna be on the regular season pup. He's not even gonna be available for the first month and a half. Like at some point we were talking about, is he even gonna be available until like November? Like it's so to not even be on the pup, I mean, that's insane. And this to me is one of the things that we cannot overlook. That is massive for Drake May. I'm not in on Stephon Diggs as a 31-year-old coming off an ACL, but to have somebody in the wide receiver room like Stephon Diggs, who is a smart football player, he knows how to run his routes, he knows how to read an NFL defense. That's massive in the development of Drake May, and it allows the guys like Kyle Williams that are coming behind him. Kyle Williams doesn't have to like get thrown into a wide receiver one role right off the bat and potentially derail that. To me, this pumps up Drake May. I think this is really, really big news that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I think it's impressive, is what it is. It does not feel like it's been that long since he popped his ACL. So the fact that he's back is really cool. I don't know. I haven't really been. I don't have any shares of Stephon Diggs anywhere. I haven't drafted him anywhere yet. Not even best ball. Um, he's kind of a guy I'm just gonna, if he beats me this year, he beats me. Like
I
you kind of
agree.
touched on, I'm not betting on guys that are 31 coming off of ACLs. But maybe it does move my needle a little bit on some of those later round decisions, like a Hunter Henry or a Kyle Williams. I think Kyle Williams is a big one. I think he's getting a lot of the steam to be the wide receiver, the second pass catching option in that offense, and some people are hoping he'll be the first. Um, maybe everyone else gets the brakes pumped a little bit now that Stephon Diggs is looking better than we thought he would.
Yeah. I think this would actually be a good time to go try to buy a Kyle Williams, just because, in my opinion, it's actually better for Kyle Williams than if Stephon Diggs was off the field. Just because, like I said, you're not you're not going to game plan Kyle Williams over Stephon Diggs. Like if you play a lockdown corner and Kyle Williams is your one, Kyle Williams is just going to get crushed in his first year. Anyways, I like that move. So that takes us through all of our injury updates. It's time to put on your lawyer hat. I don't know how you are at law. Neither of us work in law. Um, so a lot of the information that we're getting is from lawyers on the internet, people that break this down, and precedents that the NFL has set through these experiences. So the first one, Judkins got arrested for domestic battery. According to the internet lawyers, Baseline is typically about 6 weeks, is what the NFL dishes out as far as punishment goes. We'll have to see how this plays out, but that's pretty brutal for Judkins. You're already in a bad offense. Like we're projecting that the Browns probably could. They're a pretty good bet to get the first overall pick, and if not, they're definitely in the top five. Um, this is it's really tough to kind of get the breakdown between Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford. You have a fourth round rookie in Dylan Sampson. Jerome Ford, we kind of know who he is. For not a great team, the start of their season, those first games, they play the Bengals, Ravens, Packers, Lions, Vikings, Steelers. Like there's not a single game in there. I could see them getting beat by 14 points in every single game and be at like a minus 70 to start the season. It's brutal for Judkins, brutal for the team. I think it kind of just makes their backfield untouchable to me. What do you think?
I think everyone on that team is damn near undraftable. Maybe you can start having some conversations. I mean, I guess it's all baked into the ADP, right? But yeah, Judkins is not draftable for me. I will not be drafting Judkins hoping that, oh, maybe he comes on late in the season and makes a playoff push for me. I would not be doing that. A baseline of 6 weeks. He is already missing training camp right now because he's focusing on his legal matters. There's another rookie in the room who was a projected day two pick coming into the draft. Obviously, he went day three, but he went round four. Jerome Ford is already kind of entrenched there. That there is no opportunity for Judkins this year, and he hasn't even signed a contract yet. Do not touch Quinton Judkins this year in redraft. I don't know if I have to say that. I know that personally I draft injured and suspended players. I like those guys because I like thinking, oh, like if I make the playoffs without him, like I'll be amazing with him. But I'm not sniffing Judkins this year. There's just no way.
I would agree with that. Rasheed Rice, he had that incident where he was racing, got into a wreck, fled the scene. They found some weed in his car, and he was in Texas. Anyways, all of that to say, he's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, is what I've seen. Maybe as low as two, as high as it could go higher than six, but kind of the expectation is 4 to 6 weeks, and that kind of makes Rasheed Rice basically untouchable to me too, in a draft. Because I mean, we had this debate in our league because for whatever reason, Sleeper's default was that suspended people are allowed to be on IR, and and I was like, there's absolutely no way. So we did a league vote, got rid of that. It's absolutely ridiculous. So you're taking a player, especially in a redraft, like if you only have like a 5 or 6 player bench, you're telling me that you're going to clog one of those spots with Rasheed Rice for 4 to 6 weeks, and then when he comes back, you're hoping that he's a wide receiver one for the team. Worthy came on pretty good last year. Jacob, if you're watching this, Worthy is an absolute stud, and I would probably trade Marv Plus for him. Um,
We're gonna get clipped so hard.
oh yeah. Anyways, so you're waiting 4 to 6 weeks for a guy that you can't put on your IR that you're hoping eventually turns into something. I'm completely staying away. For Dynasty, it's tough. Jacob paid a 1 and a 2 for him, and in our main Dynasty league, that we thought it was pretty steep at the time, and now he's going to miss potentially 6 weeks to start the season. It's just brutal. How are you treating? I guess a good broader question would be how are you treating the Chiefs wide receiver room this year or pass catchers?
I have already largely been out on Rasheed Rice. Most of that is a cost-based thing. We're still seeing keep trade cut be ahead, have Rasheed ahead of Xavier Worthy. They are two spots apart in the wide receiver rankings on Underdog right now. So Worthy hasn't fully made the jump. That date is a couple days old, so it's possible he's made the jump now that we've had a couple more drafts go by. All that to say, most of that is an at cost ranking. I felt for a while that Worthy is a guy you want to own in the Chiefs wide receiver room. Um, and for redraft this year, yeah, I think that absolutely holds true at this point. He literally has 30 days of jail time to serve.
Hmm.
Like beyond the fact that he is gonna have to recover from his knee injury from last year in jail. Beyond like the mental aspect of what that all does to you, you know what I mean? Like They drafted Jalen Royals, who feels like a Rasheed Rice clone. You know what I mean? They're going those targets, those kind of dink and dunk, short, get them in space. Andy Reid's special routes that they were feeding to Rasheed Rice because they had no one else to do them. Those are going to go somewhere else for the 6 weeks he's out, and he's kind of moving further and further away from that chemistry, that being number one in offense. I don't think the Rushy Rice is worthless. I don't think that you should be selling him at all costs in Dynasty. But I do think the market is very far behind his true value. I think that people got really excited about what he could be because he performed very well in a system where he was the number one wide receiver with the number one quarterback and number one coach in the league. I think we overreacted to the situation a little bit. Um, Now we see Xavier Worthy in that situation where he was actually a first round draft pick who actually has a superpower in his speed. And we've seen proof of concept in that Andy Reid Mahomes offense of what an extremely speedy wide receiver can do. I don't think that Xavier Worthy is going to be Tyreek Hill, but I just think the entirety of the range of outcomes for Xavier Worthy is better than the entirety of the range of outcomes for Rasheed Rice. So I think the ceiling is higher. I think the median is higher. I think the floor is higher. And honestly, I might be taking some shots on Jalen Royals. I liked Jalen Royals as a prospect. And if there's someone I trust to have a role for Jalen Royals
Hmm.
and bring Jalen Royals along at a good speed, it's going to be Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Jordan Addison, he was pulled over a while ago. He was charged with a DUI, pled it down to, I've never heard of this before, wet reckless. Basically, reckless driving, and the wet says that there was alcohol involved. Um, Based off of what I've seen, it's 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks is kind of the baseline. If you have really good look at your behavior, how you've acted since that. And apparently Addison's acted well according to people on the internet. He's taking classes. I don't know what all he's doing, but it could go as low as 2 weeks. Basically, it's 2 to 3 weeks, whatever the NFL decides on that. So he's going to be out. In my opinion, that gives an early season bump to TJ Hawkinson. 2 weeks isn't really it's not to the point where going back to Rice, if he's out 6 weeks, that makes Travis Kelce a pretty strong option in my opinion, because Kelce and Rashee Rice compete for targets. They're kind of in that short to intermediate area of the field, and so that bumps Kelce. 2 weeks, that doesn't really provide a whole lot of a bump. I will say having a player like JJ McCarthy at quarterback, where you have a really young quarterback, you're trying to build a connection. Being out for the first 2 weeks of the season really hurts Addison, 2 to 3 weeks. And so I mean, Hawkinson is already kind of, to me, he's my tight end four. I mean, you kind of have Bowers and McBride as a pretty clear tier one for redraft. Kittle, I would say, is kind of in that first tier because of their lack
I
of
have him.
options.
I have him firmly in that tier, and I don't think anyone would be surprised if Kittle was tight end one again this year. I say again, Bowers was technically, but from a points per game standpoint, Kittle was the tight end one last year. I don't think
Yeah.
we'd be surprised with what that receiver room if that just happens again.
So to me, you kind of have a tier one with those three guys, and then it's
Great
basically a
case.
tier three. I mean,
Yeah,
I view like you basically want to get one of the top three, and Hawkinson may move into a tier two to me, where it's like if I'm in the fifth round and Hawkinson's there, maybe just because to start the year he's only going to be competing with targets with Justin Jefferson. So I think it's tough for him. 2 weeks is enough where you could still draft Addison. Only being out 2 weeks isn't brutal, and he's a good player. Again, I think this is just more of a bump to Hawkinson, and maybe hurts JJ McCarthy to not have all of his weapons right off the bat. Are you still willing to draft Addison at some point?
I am. I think that fantasy players in general overreact to like the mid to low end players, maybe your bench depth getting suspended. I think that there will be a bigger fall in ADP for Jordan Addison missing 2 to 3 games than the fall from ADP would be if Justin Jefferson would were to miss 3 games. I think you slap them both with a 3 game suspension. Jefferson, I think, maybe drops half a round to a round. We may get a multi-round discount on Jordan Addison. And especially in redraft, I think he probably is a little more valuable in redraft than in dynasty at this point. Um, But yeah, I could see myself owning Jordan Addison in leagues this year. I like Jordan Addison. I think he's a talented guy. I think he could still have a good year, especially if it's only 2 to 3 games.
Like I was saying with Jordan Addison, if he falls in the eighth to the 10th round of a draft, that's where I'd really start to consider taking him. If he's in that range, you're kind of taking dart throws anyways. So if you miss 2 weeks versus a potential dart throw with somebody who might not even work out, we already know Addison is a very talented wide receiver, and so to me, eighth to 10th round, if he's in there, I'll gladly take him.
Who are some of the wide receivers going around him? I don't know if you have ADP pulled up. I do not currently.
I I'll get that pulled up.
Because I'd love
Um,
to know who he's going around because these are the kind of guys who, if you're picking in this range, you're not expecting these guys to start every week for you. So missing those 3 games is really not as big a deal as someone at the top of the draft missing those 3 games. And you said wide receiver 37. I venture to say that you're drafting a wide receiver four at that point, and
yep.
I think that Addison could return so much more than that.
So this is per Draft Sharks. He's dropped 12 spots, and I don't know exactly since when he's dropped 12 spots. He's going right behind Quinshon Judkins. Definitely take Addison over him. Um,
That'll continue to fall, I'm sure.
yeah, he's going Aaron Jones,
Who are
Kelsey.
some of the wide receivers around him?
Wide receivers, you got Jerry Judy. He's behind him.
Give
I
me
would take him
Addison.
over. Yep. Calvin Ridley,
I want Addison.
Adunze.
Uh, interesting. Definitely a conversation. Definitely kind of a little bit team build oriented there. If I'm not strong at wide receiver, I want Adunze. If I have a good wide receiver 1 and 2, give me Addison there. I think
So ahead of him, this actually gets pretty interesting to me. Waddle, Olave, Hunter, and McMillan are about half a round ahead, three to 3 to 6 picks ahead of Jordan Addison. So again, that's Waddle, Olave, T-Mac, and Travis Hunter.
interesting. I think that feels about right. I don't hate taking Addison over really any of those guys. It's very easy to see how he could end up being better um,
I agree, and
than any of those given guys.
it feels perfect that he's in the same spot as taking a shot on the rookies. Like that seems very like a very good spot. You either have the established guy who's going to miss 3 weeks, or you're taking a shot on a rookie, and I think that's a really great spot for him. But if he continues to fall, like if he keeps falling to the point where you're drafting him by Khalil Shakir and Jacoby Myers, then I'm going to be way in on Jordan Addison.
Very easy click. How far would he have to fall? Is that round 10?
Sh Khalil Shakir and Jacoby Myers are picked 7-11 and 7-12. So in a 10-team league, that would be about the ninth round.
So I expect him to get past there. I think that when the casuals start drafting, the people who are not playing best ball, they maybe have their family in their work league every year. You know what I mean? When they start drafting, they're going to see that big red S, and it's going to push them off of Jordan Addison a little bit. You know what I
Yep,
mean? I actually feel very good about Jordan Addison. Um, yeah, gotta love those drunk drivers, right?
it's nuts. Yeah, it's kind of brutal. You have to take the well, and some people don't. Like with the Deshaun Watson thing, there was people that were like buy the dip on Deshaun Watson. Obviously, that didn't work. There, you could be like, I don't like these guys. Rashee Rice was racing on a freeway and got into a wreck and walked away from it. I don't want to draft him out of principle, and I don't think you can fault anybody for doing that. And some people are like, buy the dip on it, and I think that might be a little bit callous. Definitely a path you could take. Um, that's definitely more of a personal preference, and that's not really something I'm going to tell you which way that you should be going or not going. But yeah.
Agree.
All right. Oh, I guess there's more injuries. I have them grouped weird. Anyways, starting on the pup are Ayuk and Pearsall. So this will lead into the contracts well later in the episode with Jawan Johnson. But Ayuk and Pearsall starting on the pup, there's a pretty good chance that Ayuk starts on the regular season pup too and misses at least the first 4 weeks. He's a kind of guy where, to me, I'm surprised. I'm genuinely shocked that he's even being drafted. I think it's name value. I wouldn't touch him because I don't think even once he comes back off of his injury, I don't think he's going to even be serviceable until like mid-November. And by that point, I'm going to look up his ADP really quick. I'm just way out on Ayuk. Um, what do you think about Ayuk being
Way out on
drafted?
Ayuk in all formats. I'm just huge red alarm bells for me on Ayuk. I'm just not interested anywhere near to at cost. If I was getting a mid second for Ayuk, like I'm probably clicking that honestly. What do you think about Juwan Jennings? That is something you're a Juwan Jennings owner in our main dynasty league, and I was interested to pick your brain on what you think about this situation where he is. I guess we haven't gotten into contracts yet, but with the two of them being out and him wanting a contract or a trade, where's your head at on Juwan Jennings?
I think he is going to be a flex play week one for the first few weeks. I think he's a great flex play because
Yeah.
if if they don't make any big moves, like if they don't trade for anybody, you're rolling into the season with McCaffrey, Kittle, and Jawan Jennings. They just signed Equinemius St. Brown, but that's not really anything that'll move you off of anything. There's a lot of Ricky Pearsall truthers, but to have him be on the pup with a hamstring injury already when he's dealt with injuries, and one of the injuries was getting shot. You're not going to label somebody as injury prone for getting shot in a fluke accident, but he's already struggled with some injuries and hamstring injuries at this time of year. It's kind of one of those things where you don't like to see the soft tissue issues. And I want I want Ricky Pearsall to be getting all the reps right now. Like he didn't play that much last year, so he needs to be on the field. Like some of the veterans, you can kind of walk in and know kind of what you're doing. He really needs all the reps to be building the chemistry, especially with a weak wide receiver room like this. So to me, Jawan Jennings, he's a great flex play right now. He's being drafted at 92 overall as the at the 808. So to be getting that in the ninth round, a flex play week one, I mean that's pretty solid. Now the worry is the long-term outlook on him. If when once Pearsall's healthy, Ayuk is going to be coming back. Um, I guess something interesting. So Jawan, they're all kind of grouped in the same area. Jawan Jennings is the 808. Brandon Ayuk is the 812. That baffles my mind that you would be drafting him ahead of Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed's actually next, who obviously I'm pretty high on, but Jaden Reed's at the
Top five wide
904.
receiver, man.
You heard it here first. I mean, he's at the 812 and Jaden Reed's at the 904. Ricky Pearsall's at the 906. I mean, to me, that's Ayuk shouldn't be drafted, and I would be drafting Jawan Jennings a lot in the ninth round if I can get him there.
I like him a lot. I've had the trade window open a couple times, looking at your team, seeing if I can come and get Jawan Jennings. I do really like him here, and I think he's a solid draft pick in that range and redraft.
Yeah, go for it. I have too many 49ers. I have I have Ayuk, Jennings, and Kittle, and I want to diversify a little bit. I'm not that in on Jennings. So if you want to send an offer, but I guess that's an interesting thought. I mean, what would I take? Would I take a third? I don't think I would take a third for him. I would think about
And
I would think about a
and I'm
second.
s- and I'm still rebuilding. I can't. I have a hard time
Yeah,
giving up a third for a player of Juwan Jennings' caliber in a rebuild. I'd
I think he's
rather
kind of a
be taking
hold.
dart throws. Yeah, and that's why you have not received an offer is because I'm not excited to give up a third, and I would be surprised if you took one.
Yeah, he's 28. Some news. I mean, we can just jump around a little bit. The news on him was he's making like he signed a 2-year, $15 million deal last year. And so now he's looking up and he's like, "Hey, I'm walking in as the wide receiver one to week one. You need to pay me more money." And as far as I've seen, he isn't holding out, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a little bit more money, especially if Pearsall stays getting a little bit injured. Ayuk is on the timeline that he's on. I think at cost, Jawan Jennings. I mean, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying go out and trade a first for Jawan Jennings in every dynasty league that you're in. But I think if you need a good spot start for the first couple weeks of the season, I think he'll be a really solid flex. And you can't take it away from him. He had I can't remember which week that was, but he got like 48 points or something insane. He went absolutely nuclear.
I
So he
believe it was
has
11 for 175 and three. He was a wide receiver one on that week. I believe that's the stat line.
That's nuts. I mean, you can't take that away from him. He hasn't been a perennial big player, but I mean that's a level of upside that you don't have with a lot of picks in the ninth round.
Amen.
Mike Williams retired. I mean, that one's kind of like what could have been. He always had this untapped potential. He was just always getting hurt. He was a really big play guy. He went up too high, came down too hard. He was always getting hurt. And Tyrann Mathieu retired as well. It's kind of sad to see these names where it was like when I started watching football, these were the guys that the young up and coming guys, the guys that were like studs that you built teams around, and now they're the old guys retiring. It's kind of sad. There's not a whole lot, I mean, anything actionable on Mike Williams retiring to you.
No, nothing really to say here. I think maybe Trey Harris finds his way to the field a little earlier than he would have otherwise.
That's fair.
I think that if Mike Williams was around, maybe they want a vet in the room, someone who's going to know where he needs to be, when he needs to be there, and kind of mix Trey Harris in. Maybe that's a little bit of my take, but I just don't have a lot to say about these. It is sad. We are old heads now, but yeah, not a lot of actionable data here.
Garrett Wilson got a 4-year, $130 million extension with the Jets. He's tied to the Jets. This doesn't really change anything to me. He was going to get a contract either on the Jets or somewhere else. He was he was going to get a contract on the Jets or somewhere else. So it's a solid contract. It's not an elite Jefferson Chase level contract, but it's a solid contract.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by it at all. I fully expected him to get an extension this offseason. I've been waiting for it for a little while. That you don't let Garrett Wilson walk out your door. You do not let talents like that walk out of your door, especially like maybe if you have the quarterback already. Maybe if you have someone you feel like can elevate a talent so that you can get production out of lesser players. But when you know that you're going to be in a situation where you have a verifiably bad quarterback like Justin Fields, and you're likely going to be in the market again next year and you're going to need easy buttons for him to press, you do not let him walk out of your building. I think that I think they paid him pretty fairly. I wouldn't have been surprised if he got more. I think he got a little bit of a hometown discount, a little bit of a signing this year instead of next year discount. This deal is going to look good in 2 years, real good in my opinion.
I agree. Dollars or lack thereof is what I have this next part titled. This is the part of the offseason where the rubber meets the road. People are starting to practice, and you have players saying, "Hey, I still don't have my money." So Terry McLaurin is not reporting. And this one's tough because the Commanders need him. More than likely, what he's posturing for is trying to get guaranteed money and years because he's gonna play this season at either 29 or 30. Can't remember off the top of my head, but he's not he's not a young buck by any means. So he's probably trying to posture for years on his contract, and the Commanders are looking up and being like, "Do we really want to be paying this guy guaranteed money at 32?" Anyways, the question hasn't been answered yet, and so Terry's not reporting. I would expect the deal to get done. I don't think they can look at their roster and say we feel comfortable going in to Jaden Daniels developing as a sophomore quarterback and say Debo Samuel is going to carry this team forward.
I sorry if I'm taking long pauses, it's because you're freezing, and I don't want to cause us to break again. I
Oh,
didn't
that's all
hear
right.
anything you said after Terry McLaurin, but my 2 cents on Terry McLaurin. I assume you were waiting for my 2 cents because the feed came back, and you're just looking at me with that smile. My thoughts on Terry are he's going to get signed. They have their quarterback's on a rookie deal. They're contending. He's going to get signed. He's going to get signed. I think sooner rather than later. I think this news could break in the coming days. He's going to get signed. If you're a contender in a dynasty league, throw those second round, those, especially if you can get them for a late second round pick. Oh man, like I love
Yeah.
going and getting them right now. There's a lot of talk in the fantasy football community about regression and about unsustainable touchdowns and
Hmm.
this, that, and the other. Terry McLaurin is an amazing wide receiver attached to a great offense that got better. And he's the number one option for his quarterback. I love Terry McLaurin. I think there's a little bit of a buy low window here. Take advantage of it before he signs his contract.
I would agree. Trey Hendrickson is not reporting. Neither is Shamar Stewart. I saw some things have come out on Shamar Stewart. Apparently, it's not an injury clause that he's holding out on. There's a clause in there that if there's, well, that I guess from what I've seen, it's basically if he gets in trouble, like if he pulls a if he pulls a man, if he pulls a Jordan Addison or Rasheed Rice, like if he has to serve a suspension, the Bengals are trying to put a clause in there where they don't have to pay him money for that while he's sitting there. And so that changes my opinion a little bit because I mean saying that you're not going to sign because they're saying if you go to jail, they're not going to pay you. That seems a little bit more like I'm on the Bengal side than I was. Um, Again, I don't know exactly what's going on. The injury thing might still be a thing, but Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson still not signed. Hendrickson, that one's just rude. That was just flat out like, come on, you need to pay him. They're starting to reap the rewards of paying over half their salary cap. I think it's about half their salary cap to three guys. We were paying Joe, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. And so you're kind of running out of money, and then Trey Hendrickson is a stud and you can't pay him. Again, we've harped on it most of the episodes that we've had. This Bengals defense is going to be awful. The offense is going to have to go, and we love that for fantasy.
Oh, how I'd love to be a billionaire that could buy the Bengals right now. Because gosh
Oh,
darn it, I'd try, man. Oh man, there's so much opportunity in that city, man. Yeah, I like the precedent that they're trying to set with Shamar Stewart, but setting a precedent is hard and expensive. I would not be doing it with rookies. If you want this to be how you run your organization, if you want to be able to tell a rookie coming into your organization, hey, we don't pay. If you go to jail, if you Quinshon Judkins your girlfriend, like we're not going to pay you. I think that's fine, but you can't ask someone who's on a set wage scale to take that on. I think that you're going to have to pump up the funny money a little bit, give them some more incentives. The overall number on the contract needs to be bigger if you're going to be protecting yourself and the guarantees on the back end. It should not start with rookies. I like the precedent. I don't think players should be getting paid when they Joe Mixon their significant their other. You know what I mean?
mhm.
But they're going about it all the wrong way, as they tend to do over there in Cincinnati.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're crazy. All right, so we're gonna move away from player specific into more of a general, like what are we looking for in training camp? As we talked about it at the top, there's so much going around. Like everybody is in the best shape of their lives. I mean, everybody's making incredible slow motion catches. They're uh they're running through, I mean, they're catching from the jugs machine better than they ever have. They're running through the practice dummies better than anyone ever has in their whole lives. So I mean, how do you kind of sift through the fluff that is training camp and then into the preseason and take actionable things that actually will help you this fantasy season?
So from kind of a high level view, what I want to look at every time I go into a training camp cycle is the only real data that I'm going to get excited about is usage and depth chart data. I want to know who's practicing with the ones. I want to know how many reps they're getting with the ones. I want to know, maybe who's taking less reps to X player who comes in. I think that that is actionable data because yes, everybody is going to look very different at this time of the year than they're going to look in week 5 when we are counting their fantasy points. But the coaches need to be getting looks at these guys, and the coaches need to be building chemistry with their ones. And so I think that there is some real world data that comes from who's playing with who. A cool example, we talked about this pre show a little bit, but Josh Simmons playing with the first team already off his knee injury. I believe we thought it was a patella tendon injury and an ACL, if I remember correctly. And he's a rookie late first round tackle. The fact that he is playing with the ones already after they paid $30 million for correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's Wanya Morris who they brought in from the Niners to play left tackle. That's huge. I
Good
think
question.
the league could be in a bad spot if they found a even a Pro Bowl left tackle at the end of the first round, which I was a big Josh Simmons guy. As a Niners fan would have been very happy if we took him at 11. Like that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. He's coming in against maybe not all odds, but against the odds he's playing with the first team. That means something to me for the success of the Chiefs' offense this year, the explosiveness of the Chiefs' offense this year, things like that. I want to know who, like, what running backs are playing with the first team, stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, kind of what I was talking about earlier, where everybody's in the best shape of their life and everybody's looking great. One of the things that I look for is the negative news. So if you hear this guy is not looking very good, that's a massive red flag because they're in basketball shorts throwing to guys that are just practicing their routes, and the defensive backs are practicing, like they're practicing how they're doing their running backwards, like where they break off and everything. Like this is the time of year where everybody looks good. So if somebody's behind schedule on an injury, if somebody's not looking very good, that's where you kind of sound the alarms. And even going into the preseason, when you have somebody that's going out and they're playing against the second string defense, if they're still looking bad. So, I mean, one of the micro level things that we'll talk about, and I guess we can just jump right into it, is we're looking at kind of the battles that are going on. The first one is the quarterback battle with the Colts. Anthony Richardson is is in training camp. He's going to be a full go. They said the only thing they'll be monitoring is just volume. They're not going to give him too much volume. And like last year, I've talked about it in previous episodes. There was a point in the preseason where he takes a snap, takes a three-step drop, flat-footed. He's perpendicular, or he's parallel to the line of scrimmage, throws it sidearm, just like the worst throw I've ever seen. Easy pick six. Like you don't want to see that kind of stuff when they're playing against a second string. This isn't like you're not fitting it into a tight window against an elite level cornerback. When you're playing against a second string defense and you're playing bad, or if just the overall news is bad, that's what I'm looking for. Um, because that's where it starts to get really scary.
Yeah, if you can't do it when it's easy, I have no faith in you to do it when it's hard.
It's a good way to put
I
it.
think just an easy throwaway example to throw out here. Jaden Blue. I don't know if you saw reports this week coming out of camp from people around him, around his team, saying he's a lazy player. That's kind of one of those ambiguous backfields that when we were writing up the show doc, like I hadn't heard this news yet, but like that changes how I look at some of these segments, how I'm evaluating some of these backfields because Javonte Williams doesn't have a lot of juice. Miles Sanders kind of sucks. So like, yeah, you're thinking maybe this rookie is going to come in. Maybe he could. You can easily tell yourself a story how playing behind that offensive line and that high-powered offense, maybe Jaden Blue, maybe he could be a league winner. I hear things like he's lazy and he's not putting in the work and he's off my draft board. I think that's really kind of like an actionable example of what that looks like.
Yeah, that's good. So we'll talk about so going to the micro level, we'll talk about two quarterback battles that are happening. The Colts and the Saints. For fantasy, the Colts could be potentially relevant. Like if Richardson turns it around, we've seen that he could be an elite quarterback. Saints, that's more of like a super flex to get a startable quarterback. Um, like I said, so Anthony Richardson is back competing against Daniel Jones. So throughout training camp, I'm going to be looking for to kind of talk about the negative news over the positive. If one of these guys is getting a bunch of negative news, like, oh, Anthony Richardson sucks, and we're hearing that every single day, or oh, Daniel Jones can't throw a ball to save his life, and we're hearing that every day, that's going to be where I'm looking at it and I say, well, maybe I want to take a shot on Daniel Jones because everything that I hear is Anthony Richardson is bad, or Daniel Jones is really bad, and we're hearing that every day. And so then I go maybe try to offer a second in a dynasty league for Anthony Richardson. And then with the Saints quarterback job, we were talking about this before the show too. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets to the preseason and Spencer Rattler gets a half, and then Tyler Shuck gets a half. And then the next week, Tyler Shuck gets the first half with the ones, and then Spencer Rattler gets the second half. Um, Kind of looking at how these depth charts shake out, and like I said, if they come out and they say Shuck is the starter week one, that's who we're going with, then I think you have a starting quarterback in a super flex league, and that's valuable. And maybe at that point, he gets announced as the starter, and you flip him for a second and a third, or you flip him for your handcuff running back that you want to get but haven't been able to get. I think that's kind of so the actionable advice to me, I would maybe stash Anthony Richardson for a late pick, maybe Daniel Jones for a late pick, just to see potentially if it works out. And then that would be something that I'm monitoring through training camp and then on into the preseason is these quarterback battles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's for me personally, someone who like I'll never be top of the market on Anthony Richardson. There's no world in which I own him in a league. I think that I look over to Daniel Jones, and I think maybe he's a guy to own. But just kind of monitoring the situation, making sure that guys who, like you said, may be a starting quarterback, make sure they're not on your waiver wire. I think at least from a dynasty perspective. Redraft, I'm just not interested in any of these guys, honestly. Um, for me, on more of a micro level, some of the things that this offseason I'm very excited to be looking out for. I have five running back battles that I am excited to be looking at. I think the Bears have an exciting one. That's the most exciting one. The Dolphins have an interesting situation. Man, did I put the Browns up here before the
You
Judkins
did.
news? Did I do this shout out before the Judkins
Yeah,
news,
we'll
bro?
just take him out.
Uh,
We don't care
yeah,
about
we
the
missed
Browns.
we missed a week, so that Judkins news we haven't touched on until today, obviously. But then the Texans and the Chiefs, those are all places that I think are very interesting. I'm not going to get too deep into what my takes are on these. We've talked a little bit about the Bears backfield, but what I really want to know is I want to know who's running with what teams because whoever the RB2 is in Chicago, whoever the RB2 is in Miami, and whoever the RB2 is in Kansas City, those are going to be valuable players. Those are players that need to be rostered, and we do not know who that is yet. And then the Texans, I want to know how much work Chubb is getting from Mixon. I haven't heard great things coming out of camp about Mixon. Um, Nick Chubb is. I understand that the injury history is insane, but he's still on the right side of 30, I believe. I think he's still 29 right now. And he is still one of the best pure runners of the football that we have really ever seen. He's an insane talent. So I want to know how much Chubb is going to cut into Mixon's work. And it's more a take on how am I valuing Mixon than it is about how often am I drafting Chubb. But it is something to pay attention to.
So he's 29. He won't turn 30 until December 27th. So basically right at the end of the season. So he plays this whole season at 29 is basically what
Yeah.
we're getting at there. Yeah, I think this is where it gets tough because I think you could narrative your way into getting really high on a lot of these guys. Like you could say,
Yes.
last time Ben Johnson had DeAndre Swift, he basically kicked him to the curb, didn't like him. So is that a Roshan? You should be taking shots on that Kyle Monangai. Um, I think like with the Dolphins, I think that one's really interesting simply because Achan he's a smaller back, and so it's like we're really high on him. He's going to catch a ton of passes with Jonnu being gone. Can he hold up to that? And if not, then you have who is behind him. And I think, like you said, it's good to monitor because then if it's pretty clear that it's Jalen Wright, or if it's pretty clear that it's Madison, or if Ollie Gordon explodes, then that might be a guy that it's worth taking a late round pick on. Um, Kind of seeing how these shake out. There's a couple guys that in the fantasy industry that talk about ambiguous backfields. It's a pretty it's a good thing to get right when you do. And like with the Chiefs, kind of one of the things that they talk about a lot is you want to go for the really good offenses. So we're projecting the Bears to be good. So you want to have a piece of that. The Chiefs, man, that was tough. I traded for Pacheco last year when he got hurt on the kind of with the idea that he would come back and lead me to a Super Bowl. That didn't happen. I just got to watch Kareem Hunt run the ball a ton. That was kind of frustrating. But yeah, just looking at these, I think all these, the Bears, the Dolphins potentially are going to be a good team. Maybe the Texans and Chiefs will be good teams. So looking at these good teams, like we want to be able to have a clear handcuff on these really good rosters and maybe even somebody that can push to start. So I think monitoring these running back backfields through training camp and then on to the preseason, it's great advice.
I think that of those three teams, the Bears, the Chiefs, and the Dolphins, I think that if you said X player is going to get 20 opportunities in this offense, so that's 15 rushing attempts and 5 targets a game. If you said any given player is going to get that role in one of those three offenses, we would be ecstatic to own them in fantasy football. They would not make it out of the fifth or sixth round in fantasy football. Now I look at the situation with all of them, with the Bears and DeAndre Swift and that the way they've butted heads in the past. We look at a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, who's a seventh round pick with some injury history. We look at Devon Achane, who like I could probably pick over my head and spit on my finger. All three of those opportunities are going. I would say at least once, at least one of these rooms will see a guy get that level of opportunity. Maybe you won't hang on to it. Maybe it'll be a little more committee. But those six names: Roshan Johnson, Kyle Monangai, Brashard Smith, Elijah Mitchell, Jalen Wright, and Ollie Gordon. Of those six guys, I could see one of them being extremely valuable down the stretch in fantasy football. And if you can be just a little bit ahead of your league mates on knowing which of the guys took which snaps in training camp, those are the kind of decisions that uh, you want to be informed by that data. You want to have that little bit of an edge on the guys who are throwing darts at a wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great if you can get a solid flex. Even if it's not like a RB1 that you're getting, if you can get a solid weekly flex out of one of these guys because you picked correctly, then that's great. And so just take shots. Like at the end of your draft, when you're taking shots anyways, just take a shot on maybe I don't know where Kareem Hunt's going. It can't be very early or like the guys that you mentioned, just take shots on people and if a couple of them hit, then you win your league. And that's really what you're going for is you're trying to win the league. And if you get one or two of these right, then maybe you'll win your league. Just real quick, how heavy do you think Devon Achane is?
I think he's like I think he's what 185 to 189, somewhere in that
He's
range, right?
he's,
Do you
he's
have that?
192.
Okay, okay, maybe a little heavier than I thought it was. Maybe I couldn't pick him up over my head. What 185 easy. But yeah, 192 probably not.
Yeah, I get that.
He's an extremely light running back as far as percentiles go for running backs who
Yeah.
have had his kind of volume. He's an extreme outlier.
Yeah, he's not the 5'10", 210 to 215 of like a Bijan or like a Christian McCaffrey where you're just like this is a guy that I could see getting 200 to 300 touches and he has the body type to withstand it.
Interested to think. Would you bet if I said that one of those six guys that I named of the two ambiguous backups in those three backfields, would you bet that any one of them has a 25-point game this year? I would bet yes. I expect at least one of those guys to have a 25 PPR fantasy point game this year.
That I mean that's a tough line because you're basically saying they supplant the starter either through injury or they outplay them and then they have the skill to do it. I don't know personally, I don't know if any of these guys have the skill to hit a 25-point game. I mean 25 points is a lot. I think I would probably bet the other side of that. Outside of maybe actually now that I'm looking at it, maybe Alexander Madison.
I'm not including Madison. I don't want Madison. I want Wright and Gordon. I want Roshan and Kyle Monangai. And then I want Elijah Mitchell and Brashard Smith. I don't even want Kareem Hunt.
I would say no then.
I'll
I
say
don't
no.
think I don't
I
think they
would,
hit 25.
I'll say you want to do 5-5? That fair? We'll get that in the book.
Sure. Sure,
Woo,
that's
5-5. And that's really what a lot of this is predicated on because if one of these six guys, I think, has a lead back role in any one of these offenses, I think eventually they're going to fall into a situation where they're playing a bad defense. They're a big part of the game plan, and that's how they want to attack the other team. I think that actually most of these guys are talented enough to score 25 fantasy points. I think Jalen Wright, definitely. I think Roshan Johnson, definitely. I guess Kyle Monunga and Ollie Gordon. I don't know all that much about Ollie Gordon. I know that he was amazing last year in college, not this last college year, but the year before. I
Mm,
don't know. I think we see every year we see some dubious guys score 25 fantasy points, and I think that the longer the season goes on, the more carries that the incumbent takes in the backfield, the more likely it is that something happens that grants them the role of number one. And the later in the season it gets, the more important the games get. So if you're thinking there's a possibility that one of these guys who's probably going to be on the waivers after your draft, if you think the possibility is one of those guys in the playoffs could give you a league or a week winning performance, I think it's important to have a little bit of an edge on who that might be at this point in the season.
yeah. I think one of the tough parts for Swift, you're not handcuffing your sixth round picks. I mean, Achan is a high enough pick where I think handcuffing him is probably smart with his build and where he's going. Maybe just take a shot on that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, these are the kind of guys that like so I said I'm saving up my fab. These are the kind of guys that could be like the budget blower. You know, like Swift gets hurt on the seventh snap of the game and Roshan absolutely just takes off. He hits like 18 for 130 and a touchdown. After week one, you're blowing your budget on Roshan Johnson if he's sitting on the waivers, or HN gets hurt and Ollie Gordon comes in and blows everybody out of the water, and you're like, whoa. These are the kind of guys that I think you're right. It's a good idea to take him with the last round pick because either you just drop him after week one when they do nothing, or you somehow get lucky with your lottery ticket and they are the guy that absolutely explodes and everybody rushes to the waivers only to find that he was on your team with your 15th round pick.
Or even in a world where it's week 12 and you've already cycled through maybe 15 to 20 waiver wire transactions, probably a lot more by week 12, but it's week 12 and HN went down in the fourth quarter and both Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon got snaps. And maybe they were losing in the game, so they're not really getting meaningful carries. You know what I mean? You don't really have a great idea. You're going to hit the waiver wire that week and there's going to be about even fob bids on each player. Do you remember how they looked in camp? Who was playing with who? Do you remember who on a pure talent level, the coaching staff at this point in the year, at the earliest point in the year, thought, "Hey, I think this is the guy that we want in an ideal situation. This to be our backup." Maybe you're placing the bid on the right person, and maybe that's the difference in getting Ollie Gordon, who maybe he has a 80 yards, five catches for 40 and one touchdown. And maybe that makes a big difference because you were weak on running back. Or maybe you get Jalen Wright, who watches Ollie Gordon do that from the sideline and maybe returns a couple punts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely dart throws. We're not saying pick up Roshan because you're guaranteed to have a starting running back. These are definitely all dart throws, but it's the kind of thing that you watch for during training camp, just to make your dart throws just a little bit more educated. Now instead of just
Yep.
throwing completely blind, there's like a little candle in the back of the room and you can like maybe see the dartboard just a tiny bit better. Um, Anyways, yeah, lots of fun stuff to watch out for. By the time this recording is up, we're recording this on the 22nd. By the time this recording is up, all the teams will have reported. So that's cool. We'll actually be getting actionable advice. Hopefully nothing too big on the injury front. Hopefully everybody figures out their contracts and we get to see the good players play. That's really what it's about at the end of the day. We want to see the good players play and all this like DUI, domestic violence, contracts, injuries. That's not the kind of stuff we play the game to see. We play the games. We play the game of fantasy football to see the good players score lots of points on our team. So,
Amen.
yeah.
Good deal. Good
All right.
episode. We'll probably have a whole bunch of new news for you next week. Maybe we'll do two training camp episodes in a row.
Yeah, there's a good chance that we'll have plenty of news to go over and we'll have some exciting new advice for you guys next week. So, thanks if you stuck around this far, and we'll see you in episode number 12.